century. And speaking of games of the century, the scene around the Notre Dame campus this week, the fans, the media, the fever, it has topped even the famous 88 showdown with Miami. An exciting half hour ahead for fans of great college football. It's the Irish and the Seminoles. Notre Dame pregame show is next. The culmination of a hectic week off the field in South Bend will begin in about 45 minutes when the Irish and Seminoles take the field. And it very well could be a bit of a soggy turf today at Notre Dame Stadium. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jeff Jeffers. Call it what you will. The game of the century, a Notre Dame moment, whatever. It all boils down to which team can put more points on the scoreboard after 60 minutes. The time for preparation is over. It's number 1 Florida State and number 2 Notre Dame. Stay with us. The Notre Dame pregame show of the century is next.
The Notre Dame pregame show is brought to you by your Honda dealer group. We're working together to bring you the best-selling cars in America. By CarQuest Auto Parts. You'll find it at CarQuest. By Hardee's. Are you ready for some real food? By Golden Cat Corporation, makers of Tidy Cat and Kitty Litter Max. By Teachers Credit Union, the reward of belonging. And by Gates Chevy World and Town & Country Chevy Trucks.
That is the scene outside Notre Dame Stadium, and you can see the flags. They are flying. A very stiff wind out of the south, and the partying, well, it began about Wednesday afternoon. On the field, the head coach of the Seminoles, Bobby Bowden. Certainly one of the best in the business as he walks through the ranks of his Seminoles, who are the #1 team in the nation. I'm joined now by Bob Costas of NBC Sports. You have been around every major sporting event, Olympics, World Series, the Super Bowl. What's the difference? What is the same about the excitement level of this afternoon?
I didn't realize how big this was until I saw you and your crew here. Then it began to sink in for me, and frankly, I'm getting flustered. It's big because in most other sports, you couldn't have a single regular season game that would have this kind of atmosphere because of the setting of Notre Dame and this kind of importance. Maybe a late season baseball pennant race game back in the days when there were pennant races in baseball, not starting next year. But a late season game between the Giants and the Braves this year, or something like that, the Yankees and the Red Sox. But other than that, there's no NHL or NBA regular season game, or even an NFL game in the regular season that would have quite this context and atmosphere. But because there is no playoff in college football, college basketball couldn't match it either, because you know that the best teams will make the NCAA tournament anyway. So in the regular season, you don't have anything quite like this in American team sports.
Is there something rustic about this afternoon? Ivy covered walls, leaves on the ground, academia. Is there something rustic about today?
Well, I think setting matters a great deal in sports. If this game were in Tallahassee, and Tallahassee is a fine setting for football, but it wouldn't feel quite the same. It's not just the setting of Notre Dame and all that implies with tradition and atmosphere. It's the fact that on paper, Florida State is the better team. So if this game were on a neutral field or in Tallahassee, the chance for an upset would be much smaller. But the possibility that Notre Dame could pull it off, not just for their fans, but for the nonpartisan guy watching in Tacoma, Washington, who just wants to see a good ball game, that possibility is increased because it's here. And I think that's what makes it interesting.
Thanks for joining us. I know you got to get back to work. Appreciate it.
Probably would be a good idea. See you later.
Okay, Bob Costas of NBC Sports. Now, to give you an idea of what the atmosphere is like on the Notre Dame campus, this is the scene Friday night at the pep rally. Usually they open the doors up at 6 o'clock for a pep rally. It starts at 7. Last night, the Joyce Center was packed to the gills, and the doors were closed at 6. That's right. The Joyce Center was full to capacity 1 hour before the thing even started. We know the fans are excited. The media is here in great numbers. We'll tell you more about that in a moment. What are the players and coaches saying about the showdown? Take a listen.
I think maybe to play in the biggest game of when you start thinking about centuries or years or generations, I think Notre Dame really has to play a part in it just because of their reputation, just because of the tradition of Notre Dame. Anytime you got a 1 versus 2 and Notre Dame's involved, it's got to be bigger than anything out there.
I think we've had good preparation. I don't think we've peaked too early, judging from the number of fumbles we've had in practice. But we're just looking forward to the football game, and we have a lot of faith in our players, and yet at the same time we know we're playing a great football team.
It might be the biggest game we've ever played in Florida State history. I mean, playing against Notre Dame in Notre Dame 1 and 2, it can't get any better than that.
Well, it'll be a big game. It'll probably be the biggest game that I've played in, all my life.
Well, this is what we've really been waiting for. I think we're facing one of the better teams, or the best team in the country.
Joe Montana and Theismann, all the people played there, but those people not playing Saturday, I don't know, are they?
No. This game has been described in many ways, from the game of the century to the battle for the national championship. How does a college football game gain this kind of status? We decided to talk to the people who provide the hype. South Bend is the focal point of the sports media this week. Networks, newspapers, and television stations from here to Florida have documented nearly every word and movement of the players and coaches.
Well, if we were going to do something, I wouldn't sit here and tell you.
The players and coaches will decide the outcome of this game, but it has been the reporters and writers who have set the scene.
These are the kind of moments, obviously, the coaches and players live for. You know, I dare say that it's the kind of moment that the media lives for.
Certainly the history of Notre Dame and the fact that Florida State has become such a power the last few years, I think makes this game extra special.
Showtime, baby! Showtime!
Number 1, number 2 at Notre Dame Stadium happens once every 25 years.
You know, we're going whole hog on the thing. We're giving it the Super Bowl hype in the paper.
The hype puts more pressure on the players and coaches, which leads, of course, to more hype.
Florida State has lost 1 game outside of the state of Florida in 7 years.
It is very, very, very big.
Florida State was expected to be here. Notre Dame wasn't. If that isn't a perfect Notre Dame setup, I don't know what is.
In Florida, there's a lot of trepidation about this, a lot of worry about it, a lot of sense of there's a lot of negative thinking. God, are we going to blow it again this time?
If I were not in coaching, I would count the hours so I could see this type of game on TV.
We are joined today by a former Irish player who is well aware of what it takes to win the big game. Mark Green came to Notre Dame as a defensive back and wide receiver. He ended his career as the 9th leading rusher in Notre Dame history. Mark Green was one of many players who flourished within the Lou Holtz system. Not possessing great speed, Green was a model of consistency, either running the ball or making the catch out of the backfield. Against Boston College in 1987, Green carried the ball 8 straight times as the Irish rallied to defeat the Eagles. The 8 straight carries is still a Notre Dame record. In 1988, Green was one of the leaders of an offense that relied on a mistake-free, ball control game plan that paved the way for the national title. Green scored 7 touchdowns and seemingly always played his best when the offense needed critical yards or a big play. Green played 4 years as a backup to Neil Anderson with the Chicago Bears and also was a standout on the Bears' special teams. Good old number 24 joins us now. You were a captain in 1988 before that Miami game in October. What was it like to be around Lou Holtz with all that was riding on that game before the actual kickoff?
Jeff, this is the epitome of college football, and to be involved with a game of that magnitude back in 1988 was, I would have to say, one of the highlights of my life. And I'm sure everybody watching football when they're a kid and when they're growing up, they want to be a part of something like this, something that's special.
There is a truism of sport, whether it's accurate or not, is once the ball is kicked, all the hype goes out the window. All the excitement ebbs, and you're down to playing a game you've played since you were in a grade schooler. Is that true?
It's very true, Jeff. I think that once the ball is kicked off, it's man for man, and it's everybody on the team has to rally together and become as one. And let me tell you, it doesn't get any bigger than this, Jeff.
All right, we'll hear from Mark a little bit later. You know, big games are part of the way things are done around here at Notre Dame. Florida State is unquestionably among the nation's elite when it comes to college football. but the Noles still have a long way to go in terms of playing those so-called games of the century. For the Irish, it is happenstance. In 1943, Notre Dame twice played games ranked #1 against teams ranked #2, Michigan and Iowa pre-flight. The Irish won both and finished as national champs. In 1966, Notre Dame was rated first and Michigan State second. The result was the famous 10-10 tie. Notre Dame went on to win the national title. Purdue is #1 and the Irish second in 1968 as Leroy Keys ran wild and the Boilers won it 37-22 at Notre Dame Stadium. That year, USC was the national champ. In 1988, the men of Troy had the home field, but no advantage, as the top-ranked Irish stomped USC 27-10 on a warm afternoon in the Coliseum. So for the Irish, today's game is expected and desired. It is perhaps a sign of social change that a big deal has not been made about the race of the two starting quarterbacks tomorrow. But the fact remains that the two starting signal callers in today's game are black, something that is still an uncommon occurrence even in the 1990s. Notre Dame quarterback Kevin McDougal has some strong feelings on his peer, Charlie Ward, and believes the race of today's quarterbacks is insignificant.
It was a game, I think, in '88 when Tony Rice and Rodney Peete played in that, and they were 1-2. And, you know, I think it's a big step for us. You know, it's hard to make it to the next level. I guess as a black quarterback sometimes, you know, it's a little tougher. But looking at this, I think it's showing that, like, for instance, Charlie Ward, he's a great passer. He's thrown for a lot of yards, and he's showing that we can play quarterback and throw in the NFL. And, you know, I think that's all we need, just a shot. And I think he's doing a great job of showing that, you know, it's possible that we can do that.
How often is the opponent's place kicker the most hated man on the field? Perhaps that is an overstatement, but do not expect Florida State's Scott Bentley to get a warm reception today. You may remember Bentley was the focus of an intense recruiting battle between the Irish and the Noles. And earlier this year, he painted an unflattering picture of Lou Holtz in a national magazine. But to his credit, Bentley is not staying away from answering the questions this week.
Well, he's still a great coach, and it was unfortunate that it didn't work out for me and him during recruiting season. But I have no hard feelings towards him now, and you know, people ask me if I'm going to go up and talk to him, and I'm not going to look for him, or I'm not going to hide from him. If he wants to say something to me, then I'm all ears.
We'll be back with more on the pregame show in a moment. The clouds are starting to break up just a little bit. Well, let's see what's going on outside Notre Dame Stadium or all around the campus. It is a wild, wild time as the fans are getting ready for what should be an outstanding matchup. Charlie Ward, the odds-on favorite to win the 1993 Heisman Trophy. He did not play the last game the Seminoles played due to bruised ribs. Will they be sore after today? We'll be right back.
When Bill...
Actually, it is now rather balmy around Notre Dame Stadium. It is going to be more like an early October afternoon than a November afternoon as we take a look at the crowd milling about outside the stadium. There is the Florida State band. They are there, and I'm sure that Tomahawk Chop chant will be played a lot. You know, we talk about a big game nearly every week, but this guy right here, he's got an off week this week, and boy, does he deserve it. The head football coach at the University of Wisconsin, Barry Alvarez, who was the defensive coordinator for the '88 National Championship team. You did a great job on at least slowing down Miami in '88. Does Rick Minter face a similar situation, and how would you go about stopping Charlie Ward and the Noles?
I think, first of all, you have to limit what Charlie Ward can do. You have to limit his scrambling. You can't let him break contain. Maybe let somebody spy like we did with Zorich in some different situations. You have to make sure that their receivers don't run with the football after they catch it. Stick with the same philosophy that we used and that Lou lives and dies with, and if they can accomplish that, they'll be fine.
People talk about the generating of turnovers. You and the defense did that against Miami. You have done it since you've got to Wisconsin. How does a defense generate turnovers?
Well, you coach that daily. You put that in your kids' heads so that every practice, when they see a ball exposed, they go for it. When the ball's in the air, they're breaking for the football. You teach that daily.
You're a nationally ranked team right now. How does it feel to come back to the place where you made your bones, so to speak?
Well, this is a great atmosphere, and I think we've built a great atmosphere at Wisconsin, but there's something special here, and it's been fun to come back, and it's really fun not to worry about what calls you're going to make next.
Nice hat, too.
Well, hey, I don't have much insulation up top, Jeff. You know, it was colder earlier.
Let's take it back to our studio. Jack Nolan has more on Today Around the World of College Football.
Thank you very much, Jeff. There are a couple of other games already underway, including one involving a highly ranked future Florida State opponent, Florida. The 8th-ranked Gators are on the road right now at South Carolina. So we're going to take a look at these highlights. They are indeed exciting highlights. We pick up the action in the first quarter. South Carolina's Brandon Bennett breaks free for the 26-yard touchdown run, and it is 7-0 South Carolina. The Gamecocks then block a Florida punt to set up their second touchdown of the day. It could be a major upset in the making, ladies and gentlemen. The score right now in the first quarter, South Carolina 14, Florida nothing. That should be reversed. South Carolina 14, Florida nothing. Meanwhile, at the Metrodome, the Gophers are hosting Michigan, and the kicking game comes up big again early in this contest as Minnesota's Mike Kimball gets off a horrible 13-yard punt. The Wolverines can't move the football, but they don't need to, as Peter Alezovic boots the 35-yard field goal to get the Wolverines on the board. Then later in the quarter, Tyrone Wheatley takes the handoff, and he goes 13 yards for the score. We update you from Minneapolis, where Michigan is leading 17-0. You know, many fans are overlooking one very important fact concerning today's Notre Dame-Florida State game. It is not for the national championship. It is more like a national semifinal because both teams still have some stiff challenges ahead before the final polls come out. Of course, both teams will take on a tough opponent on January 1st, maybe even each other in a Fiesta Bowl rematch. Next week, the Seminoles host North Carolina State, a team that has been in and out of the rankings all throughout this season. Then on the 27th, the Noles travel to Gainesville to take on 8th-ranked Florida, although they better win today to remain ranked 8th. And before their bowl game, the Irish still have to host 22nd-ranked Boston College and red-hot quarterback Glenn Foley. The Eagles have won 6 straight and are 16-point favorites to beat Pitt today in Pittsburgh. Foley likes the way the Eagles are finishing the 1993 season.
This is a different season for us. Last year, we fell off towards the end of the year. This year, we're playing well down the stretch, so hopefully we can keep it up. What happens on the road is going to be up to us, and if we keep playing well, we're going to win football. We're going to win some football games.
And the same can be said about both Notre Dame and Florida State. That's it from the studio for today. Let's send you back out to Notre Dame Stadium and Jeff Jeffers. Jeff?
Mark Green rejoins us now. Mark, you had a chance to talk with your former coach, Lou Holtz, last week. Tell us what he had to say in preparation for the game.
Jeff, I did. I wanted to know what goes through the mind of a Lou Holtz when preparing for a game of this magnitude.
Can you put into words or kind of describe the feeling that you get when you approach a situation like this, being a big game, and just the things that go through your mind when you're preparing for a game like this?
Well, you get to a big game like this because both sides are used to winning. That's what makes it big. You have two people that are willing to sacrifice their own personal goals and ambitions for the welfare of the overall group. Teamwork is where everybody's committed to each other's success. You have two unselfish, talented, dedicated football teams, and that's what makes it a big game. Now, from the time you put on a pair of shoes, you want to play in a game like this. Now, you should not be nervous about it. You should not be afraid of making a mistake. You should not worry about, well, what if this happens? Enjoy the atmosphere, but also remember this. You're a winner. You're a competitor. And you should enjoy this entire environment. Now, as far as the Notre Dame mystique is concerned, and I personally believe there is one, it will do nothing but help the University of Notre Dame. As you've heard me say so many times, Mark, there's a spirit at Notre Dame. And if you believe it, you'll feel it. But if you sit there and say, well, let me feel this spirit and I'll get in the mood, you don't feel it. It's like a faith in God. You say, well, show me there's proof that there's God. Well, that's not faith. Faith is when you believe in or know facts. If you have facts, that isn't anything great about it. But our players have to believe in what Notre Dame's all about and the spirit of Notre Dame.
Certainly seemed he was glad to talk to you. I think he enjoyed talking to a former player.
Yeah, I think so too. He was very, very good for me, especially. Coach Holtz has really done a lot for me in my life, Jeff. He really has.
Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Mark Green, former Irish running back, former member of the Chicago Bears. Now, there's a lot going on here at Notre Dame Stadium, even though we still got quite a few minutes away from kickoff. There you see, it's going to be 59,075, and there will be some Seminole fans doing the chop today. North end zone and on the east side, and boy, they are pumped up. Don't kid yourself for one moment. This is a Notre Dame moment, and the students are ready to go, fully fueled and ready to get going.
New for '94 from Gates Chevy World and Town & Country Gates, the S-Series pickup. New from the inside to the outside, designed to offer you more room, comfort, and safety. Come in today for a test drive, and you'll drive away in the new rock-solid S-Series pickup from Gates.
There you see more fans milling about outside Notre Dame Stadium. Some will be looking for a ticket, and some will finish the day disappointed. And there you see the band of the Fighting Irish ready to take the field as the Irish Guard is set to lead them out. We're joined by John Junker, the executive director of the Fiesta Bowl in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. Many people say there's going to be a rematch of this game in Tempe on January 1st. What do you think?
Jeff, we'd be very excited about that. It's possible because the coalition calls for any time Notre Dame, the Big East champ or the ACC champ are 1 and 2. It's required in the Fiesta Bowl, but today we want the focus to be on the players and coaches, their preparations, their families for this great game.
Have a good time today. You don't have to work very hard. The work will be done behind us on the field. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff.
That will do it for the pregame show. It may be an absolute classic for 60 minutes, as NBC will bring you the game of the century. Bob Costas is next with NBC's coverage beginning in just a few moments.
The Notre Dame pregame show has been brought to you by Basney Honda, where buying or leasing your new Honda is just that simple. By Indiana Michigan Power. Call Indiana Michigan Power today for the name of a certified, comfort-assured heat pump dealer near you. By the Pepsi-Cola bottlers of South Bend. Be young, have fun, drink Pepsi. By Speece for all your jeans needs. By Subway, the place where fresh is the taste. And by...
The great masters define civilization.
Welcome to a special edition of the Notre Dame postgame show. This is the scene at the stadium in the wake of Notre Dame's heart-stopping 31-24 win against the top-ranked Seminoles of Florida State. Good evening, everybody. I'm Jeff Jeffers, and as you can see, the people that were in this stadium are having a great time right now. Now let's go down on the field with Jack Nolan, who is standing by and will bring us more on the post-game aspects of this contest that went right down to the final play. Jack?
It certainly did, Jeff, and another chapter has been added to the Notre Dame Book of Legends as the Irish have pulled off another upset here in Notre Dame Stadium. This game has been over for about 25 minutes, but right now you can see fans are still here, and in the press tent right now, Florida State head coach Bobby Bowden. So let's go to the press tent and hear what he has to say.
I mean, when Lou says mystique means something, yes, their kids thrive on it, but we don't know about all that. I do, but I don't play. My kids don't know, you know, so, but it's great for them. I mean, we got a little of that down in Tallahassee when our Indian sticks that spear in the ground, you know, but we ain't in Tallahassee, we're down here. Last play, we felt like they would double cover Kez, which they were doing, and we could get the ball to our X or Z receiver. But they did a good job of covering it. Charlie started to scramble, and that's the last I saw. I couldn't see what happened because of my seat. I mean, I couldn't tell what happened. He threw it to them, or they make a great play, or what happened? It was deflected. Okay, I couldn't see what happened. No, we definitely go for the win. We had the 2-point play down back in the third quarter. I mean, we were going to go for 2. I wasn't sure we could get back into the game. But we're definitely going for 2. Pardon? They are just tremendous running a football. Man, I don't know if there's a better team in Notre Dame. You know, I mean, I'm talking about position for position. Those defensive backs they got back there, they'll be, whenever they finish, I hope it's soon, they'll be NFL. You know, And then they ran the football on us, and that was, we knew where they were going to do that. Pardon? Do we deserve a rematch? If we could win the rest of our games, and they do, and it could happen. I think, you asked me if we were going to go for 2. When we talked about last night in our staff meeting whether or not we'd go for 2, some of our coaches felt like we ought to try to tie it if we had that situation and play them again. I said, you know, if we go for it and miss it, we're going to play them again anyway. So we would have definitely gone for 2. I mean, you know, even if we missed it, if we win the rest of our games, they do too, you probably got a rematch.
On the punt you called for a punt with 6:22 to go and 14 down, what was your thinking?
I felt like, we felt like, number one, if you go ahead and go for it there, you've already decided that's the play of the game. You've already decided, because if you turn it over right there, in my opinion, not only they got you 2, but they got field position and fixing to get you 3 or eat the clock up. So if you can back them up and then go after them, figuring they won't throw the darn ball, you can get the ball back. That was our thinking. It worked out okay. I didn't know if it was right or wrong when we did it.
What is it about Notre Dame's offensive line? Is it fundamentals?
Oh, execution. Execution. Notre Dame won the game today, if you want to get it into term, on execution. We had 2 turnovers. They had none. They simply executed better than we did. I wonder if they'd have had 2 turnovers and we'd have had none, I wonder if we would not have won the game. You know, it comes down to that. But their execution is superb. But that's Lou Holtz. He didn't do anything today that surprised us, unless it was the reverse. I mean, I knew he was capable of the darn reverse. I'm sure we worked on the darn thing, you know, but he executed it perfectly, you know. We had one guy had a chance to make a play on it, and he didn't, and it was just a perfectly executed play.
I'd like to welcome everyone who are listening on Oldies 1490 in addition to watching our coverage here on Channel 16. 31-24 the final, the Irish over the Seminoles of Florida State. Let's take a look at the scoring plays as they transpired this afternoon. Charlie Ward at the helm of the Florida State offense. As Lou Holtz and his squad hit the field, they knew their challenge today would be great. So Notre Dame got the football, moved a little bit downfield, but then when Ward got it, boy, did he take care of it. There he picks up the blitz, touchdown pass, and Florida State is quickly on the board, leading 7-0. The Irish had to answer, and they did. Here is a play people are going to talk about for a long time. The end around to Adrian Gerald. Remember, a couple of years ago, 1990, he won a couple of games with some great passes at the end of the contest. Here, he gets into the end zone, and the game is tied at 7. Then Lee Becton, who was tough all day long, takes it into the end zone, and the Irish have the lead they would never relinquish. Also in this contest, the Irish defense was superb, and it set the offense up in great shape. Jeff Burris bounces once, twice, poor tackling by the Noles, and Burris is in for the score. 21-7 in favor of the Irish. That was the halftime score, but everybody knew there was plenty of football left to be played. The Irish would get on the board in the third quarter. Kevin Pendergast with a 47-yard field goal. He could have kicked it 57 yards. He's pumped up the Irish lead by the count of 24-7. Florida State is far from finished. Charlie Ward takes his team right back down the field. Control passing. Warwick Dunn, the freshman, knifes into the end zone. And FSU is within 10 points at 24-14. Would it be imperative that the Irish would come back and answer the score of the Seminoles? Scott Bentley will come through with this field goal here as it is up and good. But Notre Dame never lost the lead. Even though Florida State was on the comeback trail, it was the Irish who maintained poise and the edge in the contest. Then from the full house backfield, Paul Fela hands off to Jeff Burris, who takes it into the end zone. That would give Notre Dame a 2-touchdown lead. A push there by Clifton Abraham was flagged for the penalty, so the Irish got to kick off a lot closer to the Seminoles. But back comes FSU. Touchdown pass there deflected off the hands of Brian McGee. That was a 4th and goal from the 20. Almost exactly the same as what happened at the University of Michigan earlier this year. And now Florida State is in great shape. The Irish would come through as they will get the onside kick, but they could not get a first down. They had to punt the football. Adrian Gerald had a short kick, and it comes down to one play. FSU, ball inside the 15-yard line. Of course, Charlie Ward's got 3 seconds left, and he's got to go for the bundle. He's got time, but there comes Brian Hamilton, who flushes him. Ward throws, knocked down by Sean Wooden. There were a ton of blue jerseys right there, and Notre Dame comes away with a 31-24 victory, and it truly is a moment, a Notre Dame moment. We will be back with more on the Notre Dame postgame show on Channel 16 and Oldies 1490 right after a quick timeout.
To make a point about...
Welcome back to the WNDU Notre Dame postgame show. I'm Jack Nolan on the field, and as you can see, there are thousands still here celebrating this victory, and right now we'd like to send you back upstairs to the press tent where Lou Holtz has just taken the podium.
Coming into the game, we played awfully well. I felt we would play well. I thought, you know, the weather, I wanted good weather. I really wanted as ideal conditions we could possibly have. The field was cut low, etc., because we're used to playing in that environment as well. But I've never been around anybody any classier than Bobby Bowden. And good Lord knows if we can't win at all, I think everybody in the world would love to see him, because he's a great football coach. He's a great individual. And I want to tell you something else. The Florida State players really played with a great deal of class. I thought our football players did as well. In a game where you have two very competitive football teams, the momentum is going to change back and forth. We're going to get the momentum. They're going to get it. You know, they started off, we go a couple downs and punt. They drive down and score, and then we get the ball and answer it. And then when it looked like we were going to put a knockout punch, they came right back. And then it looked like we're on the ropes with about 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. We take and we put an 80-yard drive on against the wind. So it was that type of game where that's what makes this a special game. And I was afraid with all the hype that the game might not live up to it, but I don't know how it looked from the press box. I don't know how it looked from the stands, but I want to tell you, I don't want it any more exciting from the sidelines. I can promise you that. Yes, sir.
Do you expect to meet them again on January 1?
I do expect to meet Boston College next Saturday, right here, and we're going to have our hands full. And I told our players they have until 3 o'clock Monday to enjoy it after they go to Grotto and go to church, and our coaches do the same. They have till 9 o'clock tomorrow. That's the only thing on my mind. I thought that we made some big plays. We dropped some passes that we should have had. We dropped some interceptions. But the key to our offense, I thought, was the offensive line in the first couple quarters. What disappointed me was we could not get anything going when they stacked it up. Now, once they got within striking distance, and, you know, we opened that thing up a little bit more. But there wasn't any real set key. Our kicking game played well, or we just competed well in all areas. Well, I wanted to take the win in the fourth, and I talked to the coaches, and every one of them I had to talk out of it into taking the win in the fourth quarter, and finally they talked me into taking it in the third quarter. I really wanted to win in the fourth quarter. I wanted to kick off into the win to start the third quarter, and the feeling was let's get as far ahead as we can, and let's not go against the odds.
Secondary played a tremendous game. What kind of schemes do you use to Charlie Ward off?
Well, in fairness to Florida State, we did have 2 weeks to prepare and a chance to look at 4 film on them and, you know, get acclimated to the patterns. We tried to give them a lot of different looks, but I want to tell you, Charlie Ward is unbelievable. I've never seen anybody with the peripheral vision, the quickness of foot, and the ability to run as he possesses. And he made a lot of incredible plays, and it's a tribute to it's a tribute to Florida State. There were so many times where we had a chance to put the game over, to knock them out, and we didn't do it. And they just refused to be knocked out. 4th and 15, you know, that one would have iced the game as well. We won the football game, and for that we're very, very grateful. We beat an excellent Florida State team, and I'm here to tell you I'm as proud of our football team as you could possibly be. But that is one outstanding football team over there in the other locker room. Pardon? How about the reverse? The reverse is something that we thought could go. The way they pursue it, etc. We only ran it once. We thought they were a little bit vulnerable. It was well executed, and
it went in. That was a big touchdown for us, you know, to get in from that position on the field, because they're tough inside the 30. I was very pleased with our goal line offense. That's one thing that they played well on the goal line, but there are just so many big plays. It's hard for me to pick one out. Yes, sir.
The last one, Luke?
Pardon?
Last play?
The last play, you know, you're sitting there and you're just wondering whether you'd gone for two or kicked it. You didn't know. All you can do is believe, as I've told our football team, and I said on CNN today, and I think I said on NBC's preview, I don't remember what I've said, but in essence, to me, the mystique of Notre Dame is a faith and a belief. That's all it is. And the biggest problem I felt we had with our football team to have a chance was getting them to believe. And we did a little bit more relaxation this week than what we normally do, particularly with the offense. But it's just a victory for Notre Dame. I'm not standing up here and saying we're the better football team. Today, we were the best football team in the stadium. That was our only objective. Well, we started out using a 4, and, you know, with a 4-man rush, they'd swing a guy out, and then Charlie Ward would scramble and make some incredible plays. So what we did was we just would rush 3 and spy 1. We tried to change it up. You know, the guy is... he didn't just get off the pickle boat. You know, Charlie Ward's played a lot of quarterback and been in a lot of situations, and he can read things and he can appraise them very, very well. So we had to change it up.
How do you feel about the chances of a rematch? How would you feel about that?
Right now, I'm only worried about Boston College. After that, then I'll voice an opinion. You said something, Barry?
Jeff Burris coming in his play.
I thought Jeff Burris played excellent for us. You know, he played well on the goal line. He played well in the secondary. He had a couple interceptions that he didn't quite get hold of, but just everybody played well. I don't want to pick out one guy or another guy. Yes, sir. If you just raise your hand so that we can get it. Yes, sir. Back there. Well, after the first drive, you know what's amazing is in the relaxation period, I told them, I started off with the game. The first time we got the ball, we were behind 7-0. They kicked it off into the end zone, and we started our drive on the 20 and went down and scored, and then we scored the next time we got it. So I said, you know, it's just like relaxation. It's amazing. It's a 60-minute game. Many times teams are taking the ball and driving it right down on us, but you just have to regroup, and it was important for us just to keep our poise. What was I concerned? I want to tell you something. I was concerned before the game. I didn't need them to go 80 yards to make me concerned, because they are one fine football team. If you just raise your hand, yes, sir.
I think their players might have underestimated exactly what they were going to face here today.
I don't think the players underestimated us, because they played awful hard, and they were focused, and they played awful well. Yes, sir.
How much of a factor was it playing at home and in the atmosphere that's surrounding?
I don't think that's bothered Florida State playing on the road. You know, they've played very, very well on the road. We've played well on the road. I can't tell you whether it helped us or not. We played well on the road. I can't get into that.
What made you so confident all week?
Well, what made me so confident all week was we had good preparation, and it was the only chance we had with the players, is if they felt I was confident that it was important. So it was whether I wanted to or not. And I tell you what, late last week, late at night on a replay on the Arts and Education channel, they had a special on Dwight Eisenhower. I think it was Monday or Tuesday, and I'm a history major, and I'm sitting there working, and the one thing Dwight Eisenhower said was, he said, if you do not have a positive attitude with the commander, victory is impossible. And I believe that. So I just was trying to be a little bit more optimistic and trying to look for reasons to be. Not that I necessarily felt we were a better football team. I was quite confident we'd play well, and I mentioned that, yes.
So it's the third consecutive year that the Irish have put up 10 wins, and they got at least 2 more coming up, maybe. Jack Nolan is down on the field. Jack, was there any specific point in the contest that you thought everything turned around in Notre Dame's favor?
Well, I think it all turned around when Gerald ran in on the reverse. I think Notre Dame took control at that point. I also think a key, not to take anything away from Notre Dame, was when Derek Brooks got hurt. When Derek Brooks got hurt, the Florida State defense just could not stop Notre Dame. I don't think Lou Holtz is surprised, and I'm not that surprised, Jeff, because we talked about this in all our pregame programming today. You win football games by running the football. You win football games in the trenches. Notre Dame ran the football today, 4 rushing touchdowns. Florida State had only given up 2 prior to today's game. They won the battle of the trenches, and Florida State could not run the football, and to me that was key.
And on the defensive side, if there are 2 things that are key, best rusher for Florida State today until the midway through the second half was Charlie Ward, and he didn't get much done. On the other hand, Notre Dame stopped the big play, the catastrophic play, the 75-yarder, the 65-yarder. They made Florida State earn their yards and kill some time off the clock, and it certainly worked. Notre Dame wins it 31-24. And we'll be back with more on our special edition of the Notre Dame postgame show on Channel 16 and Oldies 1490. You are going to take a look at what is going on outside Notre Dame Stadium as the faithful, the happy faithful, and the fans from Florida State who have seen a fantastic football game head back to their respective modes of transportation. You are looking at a live picture of the Notre Dame parking lots, and if you are listening on Oldies 1490, you will also be able to hear the crowd noise of the celebration that is going on. Not too many people right now are deciding to leave. There is a steady stream, but right now a lot of people are waiting. They want to savor the moment. Let's take a look down on the field where our Jack Nolan, surprisingly, I don't think so, has survived the melee. Jack, you stood above the crowd so very, very well. A beacon of virtue down there, and you've got some information on the Irish D.
Well, Jeff, you know, in all the hype leading up to this game, somehow a lot of folks got the impression that the Notre Dame defense was slow. And I think even the Seminoles were a little bit surprised as we take a look at some of the big plays today. First of all, the Notre Dame defensive line was able to get to Charlie Ward. They were able to hit him. They were able to rattle him. Bryant Young with the sack here. The Notre Dame secondary was able to stay with the fleet Florida State receivers. And I think as the game wore on, I think that surprised Florida State just a bit. Here's the big play, John Covington with the pick of the Charlie Ward pass in the first half. A big play in the contest. You could see the receivers getting frustrated on the Florida State side as they just couldn't get free very often. As you pointed out earlier, Jeff, Notre Dame did not give up the big play. Charlie Ward is not used to this kind of pressure. He is not used to getting sacked like this. The defense, Jeff, came up big today. And if you had to pick a key in a game of so many keys as you see Jeff Burris force the fumble, it had to be, I think, the play of the defense against one of the best offenses in the country. They were able to rattle Florida State. I think they were able to hurt Florida State because as the game went on, the Seminoles lost that spring in their steps. They got up slowly. The receivers seemed to run a little bit slowly. And, of course, the big thing was Florida State could not run the football in Notre Dame. And in college football, we harp on this all the time. Some people think we make it up. But if you can't run the football, you cannot beat a good team. And that's what happened here today.
Jack, let me ask you one question, and there's no inside information here because obviously you've been on the field. Did Charlie Ward look as if he was hurting during the game?
There's no question in my mind that Charlie Ward looked like he was hurting. He looked like he was trying to protect himself. He was pulling up early. There was the one-trick play in the second half where he seemed to have a clear shot at the end zone. I mean, Charlie Ward is Jim McMahon-like in his disregard for his body. He likes to hurdle into the end zone. He likes to throw himself at tacklers. But on that one play I'm thinking of, he hesitated, and he slowed down, and he allowed himself to be tackled. I do not think that Charlie Ward was 100% today, but I do think he was 80%, and even at 80%, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the country.
I have to think that one of the key things for Notre Dame, and they have done this all year long, sometimes they do it at the end of the first half, they answer the challenge. A team comes down and score, and Notre Dame goes right back and gets it done. And that certainly was key in the second half of this contest. Now, let's go now to the press tent where... Oh, excuse me, I should not say. We were talking about Notre Dame answering the challenge, and there were a lot of challenges today, and there were a lot of missed opportunities also. He was the player of the game as voted by NBC, but Jeff Burris could have had a monster game. And you heard Lou Holtz say that Jeff Burris had a great game. one time here. Tough play, possibly could have been made, but he got up there and deflected the ball. Not to show you that he missed the ball, but we're showing you how much he was around the football. There, coming in and breaking on the football, knocking it away. Now, there was definitely one that Jeff thought he should have had, and of course, we will be able to see that one here. The throw, and right in the hands for just a moment, but as the receiver flashed in front of him, it became a bit of a difficult catch. But here's the one that I'm sure, if there were any that Jeff wishes he had back, it is this one. Not pointing out mistakes, just the fact that opportunities sometimes go awry, but he did get in the end zone on 2 occasions. So Jeff Burris, all in all, a couple of plays he wishes he had back, but I'm certainly glad he didn't drop the football when he was taking it into the end zone. So Jack, comments more from down on the field.
Jeff, you know, I had some folks down here as the game was ending. Everybody, of course, holding their breath to see if Florida State could get in that tying touchdown, and everybody was bringing up Miami in '88. Miami in '88. Well, I don't know what you think, because we haven't talked about it yet, but I think it's different in that, to be honest with you, I think Miami may have been the better football team in 1988, but Notre Dame came up with the big game. After watching today's game, I think Notre Dame is a better team than Florida State.
They certainly were today. Florida State showed a lot of resolve in coming back and making it a contest. In terms of comparisons to the game against Miami in 1988, this game was played much better. You remember all the turnovers that Miami had, Notre Dame had a couple too. So I would have to give the nod in terms of technical expertise to this game, but in terms of emotion, there may not have ever been as one as that one against the Canes in '88. We'll be back with more on this special edition of the Notre Dame postgame show on Channel 16 and Oldies 1490. Once again, the shot outside as the celebration continues in the wake of the 31-24 Irish win.